What if your biggest achievement wasn't enough to make your family finally see you? I grew up in a quiet Ohio suburb where every lawn was trimmed and every girl had a straight smile except me. My parents had two daughters, but only one of us was ever really seen. Katie, my older sister, was the family star. She had golden hair, cheer trophies, and a permanent spotlight. I was the one standing in the corner of family photos, if I made it into them at all. From an early age, I learned that love in our house came with conditions. Compliments were rare for me and always backhanded. At least she's smart, they'd say when someone asked about me. My mom once joked that I was born with a face for radio, and my dad laughed like it was the best line he'd heard all year. But behind the teasing was something colder, disinterest. My wins didn't matter. Katie could show up late to a class and still get praised for her charm. I could ace an exam, and here, why not perfect? The worst part? They truly didn't see how it affected me. They thought I was just shy, moody, a little off. But I was drowning in the silence they left me in. I spent hours alone, teaching myself how to code because, at least with computers, logic made sense. Ones and zeros didn't ask me to smile more or wish I looked different. I didn't know it then, but that lonely room, that cheap laptop, and the quiet hours I spent building something from scratch, that would become my escape. And years later, it would also become the reason they came knocking. But I wasn't the same girl anymore. College was the turning point, not because my family suddenly changed, but because I finally left. I got into a solid state university with a full scholarship in computer science. My parents didn't even attend the award ceremony. My mom said it conflicted with Katie's bridal shower. My dad sent a thumbs-up emoji. That was it. I moved into a tiny studio apartment near campus with a second-hand desk and a mattress on the floor. I didn't care. For the first time, no one told me what I lacked. My classmates knew me as the girl who helped debug their projects, not the girl who ruined family photos. I finally felt seen. My world grew fast. I joined a research group working on real-time rendering. I interned at a local mobile app company. I even launched a side hustle, custom gaming PC builds. Word spread, and streamers began reaching out. My code was being used, talked about, respected. Meanwhile, I kept my distance from home. Holidays were strained. I'd show up out of guilt, only to be greeted by subtle jabs masked as small talk. You're still doing that computer thing? Met anyone special yet? Maybe you should try being more approachable. You know, for networking. But I didn't react. I just smiled, stayed quiet, and left early. They didn't know I had saved every check, invested in myself, turned that old laptop into a career. They didn't ask. And I didn't offer. Until the day a streamer with over 1 million followers gave me a public shout-out, and suddenly they all remembered I existed. The shout-out changed everything. One tweet. One clip of my physics engine demo running smoother than anything on the market, and suddenly my inbox exploded. Developers. Streamers. Even a few recruiters from names I never thought I'd hear outside gaming headlines. For a week, I didn't sleep. I ran builds, answered questions, and took Zoom calls in the same hoodie I'd worn in college, now fraying at the sleeves. Someone called my work a breakthrough in mobile realism. I just nodded, still waiting for someone to say it was a mistake. But then came the email. A major game company, let's call them Titan Studio, wanted to license my engine. The numbers on the offer sheet looked fake. I had to Google contract terms I didn't even know existed. I hired a lawyer. I signed the deal. That same day, a gaming blog ran an article, Unknown Ohio Developer Shakes Up Mobile Industry. And that's when the calls started. First, my cousin shared the post on Facebook. Then my mom called twice in one day. Then Katie. Then my dad. They weren't angry. They were sweet. Suspiciously sweet. Hey honey, we were just thinking of having a little family dinner. Would love to catch up. Suddenly, I was a daughter again. A sister. A brilliant young woman making us proud. I hadn't heard those words, proud, brilliant, in 27 years. And they didn't sound like praise. They sounded like bait. I should have said no. But I went to the family dinner. Not for them, for me. I wanted to see it. The performance. The desperation they couldn't quite hide. It was at the Cheesecake Factory, because of course it was. My mom wore her holiday blazer, the one she reserved for teacher conferences and funerals. Dad had on a tie. Katie hugged me like we were best friends. And Steve, the failed crypto smoothie guy, looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. They ordered wine. Toasted to new beginnings. Told the waitress it was a celebration. My mom kept touching my hand like I might vanish. I played along. Smiled. Nodded. Waited. And then, Right after dessert, it came. We've been thinking, Katie started, that maybe it's time to come together as a family more. Especially with everything going on. Steve's business had some setbacks, Mom added, swirling her wine. The market's just so unfair to young entrepreneurs. Then the real ask. Their house, the McMansion they used to brag about at every holiday, was in trouble. Foreclosure. 3 months behind. They didn't ask directly, of course. They just implied. You've done so well for yourself, Katie said sweetly. And we're so proud. We just need a little breathing room. A cushion. It wasn't a request. It was a setup. A test. They thought the new money meant I'd forget everything else. But I didn't. I didn't forget the celery sticks. The jokes. The silence. The photos where I was told to stand behind the pretty one. So I smiled. And I lied. I'll think about it. They thought I'd just send a check. That's the part that still makes me laugh. After everything, they thought I'd sign over my success like it was a gift bag at one of Katie's sorority parties. I went home that night and didn't sleep. Not out of guilt, but out of clarity. I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt. I was done. The next day, I started pulling records. You see, tech teaches you a lot of things. One of them is how to track patterns. Emails, bank trails, social posts, connections. The digital breadcrumbs people don't realize they leave. And my family? Left a whole bakery. Steve hadn't just lost money, he burned investor funds in a crypto scheme that violated multiple FTC disclosures. Katie had been quietly trying to sell designer handbags and influencer packages for cash on the side. And Mom? She'd already bragged to her coworkers that I was gifting the house back to the family to save their reputation. They weren't asking for help. They were counting on me bailing them out of a mess they built with their own pride and lies. So I made a choice. I didn't confront them. I didn't send a dramatic email. I forwarded the evidence, quietly, to the appropriate agencies. Anonymous tip lines exist for a reason. Then, I made a post. Public. Calm. Precise. I'm proud of what I've built. But I didn't get here with family support. I got here despite the constant rejection, cruelty, and comparison. This success is mine, and I won't be guilted into sacrificing it for people who only remember my name when they need something. I turned off my phone. The fallout came fast. By morning, my post had been shared dozens of times. Old classmates, coworkers, even people I hadn't spoken to in years commented with messages like, "I always wondered why they treated you like that, and proud of you for speaking your truth." But from my family? Radio silence. No calls. No texts. Not even an angry email. Instead, Katie deleted half her social media. Steve's LinkedIn suddenly had no job listed. And my mom, well, she stopped posting inspirational quotes about unconditional love and started sharing passive-aggressive Bible verses instead. Dad did call. Once. I let it go to voicemail. His message was short. You've made your point. I hope it was worth it. That was it. No apology. No accountability. Just the usual guilt, packaged in fewer words. And you know what? It was worth it. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I owed them anything. Not an explanation. Not my time. And definitely not my money. I took a few days off. Booked a solo trip to the coast. Ate overpriced seafood. Watched the sunset without checking my phone. I wasn't celebrating revenge. I was grieving the version of me that used to beg for their love. Because she was finally gone. I came back from that trip lighter. Not in the cliché way people say after a vacation, but in the way that happens when you stop carrying what was never yours to hold. Their shame. Their expectations. Their silence. All gone. I moved into a new space a few months later. A place with big windows and no shadows from the past. I kept building. Launched my own development studio. Hired a team. Mentored girls in STEM who reminded me of me, quiet, brilliant, overlooked. My company took off faster than I expected. Investors noticed. Publications called. One even ran a feature titled, "The Girl They Called Average Who Changed Mobile Gaming." I didn't correct them. Let them think I was just average once. Let that version of the story live. Then, one day, an envelope arrived. Handwritten. No return address. But I recognized the neat cursive instantly, Mom's. Inside was a note that said, "Katie's expecting. She's scared. We could really use your support. Family sticks together." I read it once. Then twice. And then, without anger or ceremony, I folded it neatly and placed it in a drawer I don't open anymore. Because sometimes the strongest thing you can say is nothing at all. This time, I choose me.